Good afternoon. I'm going to do something that I've never really tried before, which is sharpen a pocket knife. Well, not that I've never sharpened a pocket knife, but never on camera. Should have done this beforehand. So what I'm going to do, what I have here is my my stepdad. He died back in March, and he was a maintenance, a machinist, and a packaging mechanic, and he is an extremely large set of tools that my mom actually keeps trying to get me to go through, and I just don't really feel up to it yet. But what I do have here is this little inexpensive pocket knife that he used to keep it in his tool pouch. It's basically for the typical things you would carry a small knife like this. But I saw it. I was at my mom's house over the past weekend, and she was having a range delivered, and of course I found some electrical issues, and we had to put in a new box and all that. It was a little bit of a trial, but not too bad. I don't do a whole lot of field electrical work anymore. That's not my thing now. It hasn't been for a few years. But while I was down in their basement looking for a specific tool, I came across this. And another thing I came across, which is kind of cool, it's an old Sears little roller, and it has the decimal equivalent chart on the back, which brought back a lot of memories. I used to work, when I first got out of the military, I used to work in a shop, a print shop. It was a print and packaging, and for some odd reason our machinery was made in Maryland, and I'd actually toured that factory once. That was pretty cool, but for some odd reason our software was in metric, because I think came from Europe. I want to say Italy. I could be wrong, but we would get our plans, and they always came in imperial. We'd have to convert them to decimals, to metric, and I got really good at it actually. But initially I had a chart just like that one there, and because you'll find in the packaging industry, there's a mishmash of all kinds of different machinery / programs that run the machines, and sometimes even the computer itself might be from it might be from Europe or Asia. But we eventually did convert it to imperial, just because it made a lot more sense. We could never all of our plans were always in imperial, and to convert them all over to metric would have taken years. So it was much easier to change the program than it was to change our plans. All of the jobs we used to run every day. But this knife here, it's really, you can see it's pretty dull. I mean, it will cut paper. It's not a spoon dull, but it's not razor sharp. So I'm going to try to sharpen it with this stone that I purchased specifically for sharpening knives. I said before, I'm not going to tell you I'm great at sharpening pocket knives, but I've gotten a lot better at it. And what I normally do is the conventional wisdom is, spread this out. The conventional wisdom is to find your angle just like you would sharpen a chisel and push it and try to maintain that same angle so you can develop, I guess when sharpening knives you would call it an apex. Sharpening knives with two bevels, I mean, you would call it an apex. The key here is to maintain your angle. That the angle in my experience, doesn't matter as much as keeping it consistent. Just like on a chisel, really. Chisels can be anywhere 25, 35 degrees in some cases, many cases. Now, one thing is that's tougher to me, this is why I've always had a little bit more trouble, is it's harder to feel the barrel on these for some reason, and at least for me it is. I guess there's guys that are really, really good at sharpening knives and they can tell right away. And what I also do is I do put a good deal of pressure when I'm sharpening a chisel. I worry more about even consistent pressure than I do really bearing down on it. I sort of let the stone, or if I'm using a diamond plate, which I've mentioned I rarely use, but I sort of let the sharpening medium do the work. But with a pocket knife, especially one that doesn't have a great steel, you really have to put some pressure on it. Probably not easy to see this on camera. I'm thankfully getting a new phone in a couple of weeks that will hopefully have a better camera. I don't really have the inclination to purchase a phone specifically so it has a nice camera, because I don't really do this for a living. This is for fun. Usually I do this when I'm washing clothes, which is what I'm doing right now, since I'm down here. And this is the bit of an awkward part. You're sort of going backwards. Well, I am. One thing is about me is I'm right-handed, but I throw left-handed. If I'm playing baseball or basketball, I'm left-handed. But you would think that would make using my left hand easier, and it really doesn't. I'm for the most part generally as awkward as any right-hander would be trying to use his left hand. But one thing I can do really well is type. And you wouldn't think my hands are pretty beat up, and I don't really have giant hands, but they're not small. And you would think that I would not be able to type very well, but I can. It's just one of those skills that came naturally to me. You can do it back and forth. I don't really know if it makes much of a difference. It is difficult to tell whether I have a bar here. Let's see what it does with the paper. Well, it's definitely a lot sharper. You can see that. It's slightly tearing. I've tried to sharpen knives on water stones before, I just can't do it. I don't think they're aggressive enough. I always end up having spots that are dull, or even if they're sharp, they're not as sharp as the rest of the knife. Actually, I need to replace the stone now that I'm looking at it. It's starting to crack now that I've been using it a lot more, because I was doing some of those demonstration videos. The crack is getting more and more pronounced. Thankfully, it's inexpensive. I actually might try, rather than purchase the same stone, I might purchase a larger one that can be used on chisels if need be, and plain irons. There. Well, it's definitely sharper, a lot sharper. And let's go to the strap. In my area right now, it is autumn. You can push forward. I don't necessarily recommend it, but you can. But it's autumn and the leaves are really falling and it's a lot cooler out. So I had actually planned on getting out the leaf blower and starting my yard, but it's almost dark already. I got home a little bit later than I wanted to. So let's see what we have here. So now that is a lot. This is much sharper than, as you can see, it's much sharper than it was. This piece of paper is sort of shot already, but it's going right through it. That one. Now, paper's not always the greatest proof. Let's see my hand here is a little hairier than most people's hands, I guess. I don't know if I'd want to shave my face with this, but it is taking the hair off of my hand and getting it on my bench. But yeah, that's really what I wanted to show, is that sharpening a pocket knife is actually, to me, a lot tougher than sharpening a chisel, but it's not all that difficult. There are some videos on YouTube where these guys really know what they're doing, and they take it the extra step and get these tools, even an inexpensive little knife like this, they take them and get them to really an almost surgical level of sharpness. And I would certainly recommend to aspire to that, but if you're just getting going, it's really just a matter of your inexpensive stone here, keeping your hand steady, keeping your angle steady, and just pushing into it. See if I can, probably won't be able to see this, but just pushing into it. That's all you really need to do. The most important thing is just keep your angle steady and do the whole blade. Start at the tip. You can go down the stone too. It's actually easier to hold the stone, but this stone doesn't really come out. It's glued in, loosely glued in. Because and this should be, as I said, this should be really sharp enough for everyday use, where you're not struggling to use it. There you go. Nice little sharp pocket knife. Pretty quick. I'm not as fast as the pros, so to speak, but I've gotten a lot better. And like everything else, it just takes a little bit of practice. Sorry, I keep looking over there. I always always hear things in the back corner of my garage. It's probably a chipmunk living in there. But yeah, it can be done pretty easily. Not a whole lot of time, effort takes to get a knife sharp enough to where you can use it for all the general stuff you would use a pocket knife for. Most people use it for opening boxes opening letters, that type of thing, cutting rope, cutting twine. I carry around a click back, like one of those fast back sort of pseudo switchblades at work that I use to basically the main reason I have it is cutting twine off of cutting rope off of. I work in the electrical industry obviously, and I deal with a lot of large package, like opening up generators, for example, is it can almost be dangerous if you see those plastic strapping. That's what I use a knife for. So I do like to have a nice sharp knife with me at all times. This I won't use for that. It's really not hefty enough, but it is good enough for smaller jobs. But as I said, I carry a nice, I keep a couple of my pocket knives really razor sharp. And I have a nice knife from Case that my wife bought me for our anniversary a few years ago that is, I keep razor sharp, but I don't really carry that knife at work. It's going to sound funny, but it's one of those things, it's just too nice for work. It would get banged up and beat up, and it's just too pretty. But yeah, I'm going to clean this knife up a little bit, and it's really just a memento of my stepdad. He was a good guy, taught me a lot. When I was a kid, my mom had got remarried when I was about 12 years old, I guess, and he taught me electrical work, plumbing. I had this strange childhood. I grew up in North Philadelphia, but I would spend my weekends in the suburbs and even in the country, doing things that a lot of city kids didn't really get a chance to do. And sometimes it was a lot of work. Like I went from the back lawn, and I grew up in a row house, a tiny row house in Philadelphia, and the back lawn, where our back lawn was about 10 by 15 and was really just a sidewalk with a little patch of grass. I went from that to a yard with a 3-acre lawn, and really it was almost seemed like it was overnight. And when I was 12 or 13 years old, I was driving a tractor it was a 3-speed stick shift. I learned how to drive a stick shift before I could even drive a car. But yeah, he showed me a lot of things. So there's some of his tools that I'm holding on to just as mementos, and just things I remember him by. And this is going to be one of those tools. I'll probably clean it up a little bit, put it in my toolbox, and it'll be there. And I'll think of him when I see it. So that's why I did this little sharpening project here. And if you have any questions on knife sharpening, I'm really not the guy to ask. There are a lot of better guys on YouTube to reference. They're really good. I always said, like with sharpening woodworking tools, I'm pretty good. And some of the methods I see on YouTube, I don't agree with. I think they're overly complicated and unnecessary. The knife sharpening videos I've seen are the exact opposite. They're really high quality. A few guys in particular, I don't remember their names off the top of my head, but I really recommend searching those guys out. I more did this because I wanted to show that even a person who's not great at sharpening a pocket knife, I'm still good enough to take an inexpensive knife like this and put a really solid edge on it in just a few minutes. And if I can do it, really anybody can with just a bit of practice and an inexpensive stone like this and some 3-in-1 oil. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Phillies are in the World Series tonight, and I hope they win. I hope they sweep. I'm a Philly boy, and I do watch baseball, and I did play for a long time, so hoping for the best. Anybody out there who doesn't agree with me, well, yeah, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but good luck, Phils, and have a great night.